Good afternoon. My name is Joseph Lloyd and welcome to No Budget Reviews, the series where we go around the country finding cars that you can buy in good condition with an MOT for under £1,000 and filming them with absolutely no money at all. So we have to use my phone, no microphones, no fancy DSLRs, nothing like that. Just good honest cars that you can buy for very little money and you can enjoy driving. Well, viewers, here's a car that I featured on my channel an awfully long time ago and thought you'd probably see a lot more of it, but due to global events, unfortunately, the purpose to which this car originally was bought, well, it became redundant. We were going to do a sequel to the Santa Pod Challenge, which a lot of you would have seen on my channel about a year ago, and this was the car that Mr Matt Richardson from Furious Driving, of course we've got Furious Driving stickers on this car, bought for the challenge. It cost him well under £500, and I think so far his total spend on the car is still under £500, so it's still technically eligible for future things, but at the moment, well, we've had to sort of postpone things, and you know the channels involved in it have done various things. I had to sell mine. Joseph from Ashraf and Cars has sold his. Mr Coleman's Alpha that he bought, well, that's been scrapped. But this survives. This is a 1988 Volvo 740 GL. This is a pre-facelift car. The facelift actually came quite late in the life of the car, around 1990 or so. And this was, until earlier this year, a one owner from new car. It's done about 145,000 miles. And actually it's in remarkably good condition for the age. The GL, I believe in this country, was the base model. There were other places in the world where there was just a 740. I could be wrong about that. But this does get you some equipment. It's similar to a 240 GL, really. And of course, if you look at the No Budget Reviews playlist on YouTube, then you'll actually see a 240 GL that appears on it as well. And that was a car that was very, very big in my youth, because my mother had one of those for 11 years. So it's a privilege that Matt, who's quite busy today, has let me film this car. And I think a lot of you like it as well. We did a walk around of it back in March when it wasn't as complete as this. In the boot we've got various bits of trim still to go back. This car is still a project. It's only recently gone back on the road, not because there's anything wrong with it necessarily, but it's just because he has so many cars and he can't afford to tax them all at once, which I understand, particularly as this car costs, I think it's £250 a year to tax now. The boot struts of this car aren't the best, and I'm not going to be able to pull the boot carpet up because I've only got one hand, and that red flower pot is supposed to replace the boot strut. There are hydraulic struts on this boot, and yes, there is a full-size metal spare wheel, and a steel spare wheel, not a space saver. If we look back here, we actually see a label which shows there's a ski hatch as well, which for a car that was designed in the early 1980s, it's pretty remarkable. But you know, when you think about Sweden and things like that, it does make a fair bit of sense. The boot is very, very long, but the bit at the front is quite shallow. This bit's a bit deeper, but of course, you know, you could just buy a 740 Estate if luggage was an issue for you, and you know, 240, 740 Estates, they were amongst the most capacious cars with luggage space of the 1980s. Go. And of course the scrappage scheme survivor. This car's too early for a catalytic converter, being an 88, but it did come later. Got a little chap here who lived in the car before Mr Richardson bought it, and he's still here, so he lives in the car too. As we get in the back, you'll notice with the bits of plastic, those are mainly little bits to go on the windscreen pillars, and also down there as well. So if you get in here, oh, there's loads of room in here, absolutely masses and masses of room. Boxy profile means very good headroom, very good leg room. Got a massive armrest and this sort of, I don't know what you call this, a sort of blue striped cloth fabric. It's a bit like a 1980s suit. Also got the mat pockets on either side. My mother's 240 was like this, and the seat's very familiar to me. Very obviously safe, dependable seating in case you get involved in an accident. Wind up rear windows because this is only a GL. Although you can really obviously see here where the switch is supposed to go for electric windows, and then always on these 700 series Volvos, I find it interesting that the door pulls like this do get a bit of fabric in here, and this is sort of mixture of soft and hard touch. It's interesting to see that. Obviously Volvo rubber floor mats on the side of a one owner car. My mother's car had those too. Unfortunately, that was written off in 2003 in Wales, where it had an accident with a BT van. This one, though, has not had accidents like that, which is good. I think we'll take a look under the bonnet. Well, here we are, viewers, the famous Volvo red block engine. In this instance, the B200E, E standing for fuel injection. The Volvo 740 has been a little bit of a funny car for me because I can't find consistent power output figures of most of the engines. I believe this one's somewhere around 110, 115 horsepower, but I'm not exactly sure. It doesn't feel like an awful lot in a car like this. It's actually not that heavy. It's about 1,300 kilos, but due to the solid nature of it, it doesn't actually feel that fast. Obviously, there are lots of other engines available, turbo engines and other things. And bizarrely, in the 760, this car's close relative, you'd think that would be 6-cylinder engines only, but it wasn't. It was a mixture of 4- and 6-cylinder engines and turbocharged ones as well. You can see here we've got the famous wipers and everything like that on the headlamps. This one's currently missing. It's like moving the cam cover gasket on this, but these red block engines, they just go on forever. Very, very dependable engines. This car at 145,000 miles has really barely run in. I like the sort of cantilever effect on this bonnet, which means it's nice and steady, but it's not hydraulic struts, which can fail sometimes. So the engineering of this car is just really, really good. I can see why my mother liked her 240 so much and had it in the family for 11 years. Right, let's get in here. Got to be a little careful of the door because the check strap's a bit dodgy on this one. But the wind is really light today, so it shouldn't be too much. Very familiar instrument panel to lots of people, anyone who's been in 1980s Volvo. Actually do have electric mirrors, but we've got 2 electric mirror switches here. Just like my mother's car, being a GL, only got ones in the front and not in the back. I think my mother has actually had manual mirrors. Fog light switches there. The reheated window is here. I'm sorry about the extra light that's getting through. Because this is an 88 car, it's got the earlier type of Volvo standard stereo in it. The 89-90 cars, and my mother's car was a 1990 model year, but it was in November 89. Got different stereos in them. It looks like it belongs there though, very much. Gear lever, very, very, very long throw on this, massively long throw, but it's very satisfying to use nevertheless. There were 4-speed and 4-speed plus overdrive gearboxes also available, and I believe a 4-speed automatic. It might have been a 3-speed. Heated seats, of course, because it's a Volvo. Very comfortable seats, of course. There's a little lever here to sort of rock it back or forth if you want, which is interesting. Has light switches on here, and it makes. No, it's not going to make. It's not working today. It's very strange. When you actually put the indicators up and down like this, the hazard light switch does actually come on when you move. I don't know why it's not coming on today. Maybe I have to turn the ignition on to switch that on. Let's try that again. Aha. Yes, and that's seatbelt noise. That's seatbelt noise, viewers. Yeah, why? Yeah, you can see like that is working, but for some reason not separately. I don't know why. It's really strange. Let's turn that off for a second. simple, no air conditioning or anything like that. Lots of sort of blanking switches where other things might have been. Didn't get airbags, I don't think, until later in the life of it. The facelift of this car was about 1990, and actually they made it until 1992 for European markets anyway, when the 940 was already in production. Secret mission documents going there fine. I remember this again from the 240 we had, where the cup holders are on the lid of the glove box, and the glove box closes like that. Sort of soft touch dashboard, very, very angular. Completely different instrument panel from a 240, but somehow strangely familiar. These are known for having problems though. I think the connectors at the back of the dashboard tend to go, which is a bit of a problem. Big sort of slab of door with big pockets at the bottom. Big vents as well to keep everything cool or hot depending on what you want. And the mirrors are the same again as a later 240. Right, I think it's enough. We've learnt about the interior and exterior of this car. It's time to go for a drive. Ah yes, seatbelt reminder. Now we're fully legal. Let's go for a drive. I love the sound of this viscous fan. 740s didn't get an electric engine fan until I think 1991. So it's about the last year of production. I don't know why that Volvo decided they'd keep so many ostensibly very similar cars in production. The 240 was produced until 1993. The 740 was produced until 1992, although for some markets it remained on sale until 1994. And the 940 came out in 1990, and ostensibly they all shared similar engines and gearboxes and levels of space and things like that. So I don't really know what happened. The 740 and 760 were supposed to replace the 240 and 260, and indeed the 260 was discontinued after the 760, which is the first derivative, arrived. But the rest of them just stayed around forever. I'm not sure what Volvo's marketing strategy actually was, but it certainly worked for my parents, because they bought a 2-month-old 240 in January 1990. Engines available in a 740 were this one, the B200, which actually did come with a carburettor version. I think it was only 100 horsepower. This is the B200E. I think it's somewhere between 110 and 115 horsepower. There was also a 16-valve version of this engine, which produced 139 horsepower, and above that there was the 2-litre turbo, 160 horsepower. As I've said, these power outputs are approximate because, for whatever reason, I had a lot of difficulty finding just reliable information about this. Different sources said different things. Then was a 2.3-litre engine as well. My parents' car was the 2.3 with the 240, but it also appeared in the 740 and in the 940. And that was standard with the 8-valve engine, which was the first engine to come in the 740, the GLE, in 1984. It was 130 horsepower. There was also a 16-valve version of that engine, which developed 155 horsepower, and there was a 2.3 turbo as well, which was about 173 horsepower. I think a lot of the varying power outputs has to do with the fact that this car had different setups for the American market. In terms of cornering, well, it's alright. I mean, if you had some sort of slightly firmer springs in it, it would be a bit better. You get a bit less body roll, but as it is like, and I'll quote my mother here, it's like cornering in a stately yacht, which sort of sums it up quite well, really. The steering's direct enough, but the springs are just really, really soft. It's just a car designed for comfort and family transportation. It's not designed really for outright handling, although 740s, if you do turn them into bangers, and you know, a lot of people still do, because prices of these are still relatively low for you know, examples that are not concourse or anything. They actually do quite well, but you know, they need a little bit more power to be able to have as much fun as you want, as opposed to this V200E. There we go, round and roundabout. It's kind of fun. You've got to sort of manage your expectations a bit, really, but it's all right. You're not going to win any prizes for sort of handling or acceleration, but maybe you don't need to. Right, let's flip the camera around and we'll look at some trim levels. Right, viewers, we've got plenty of dashboard in the way, and also my mount. That's just the way that it goes, I'm afraid. So trim levels available in a 740, where just 740 without the GL. I don't think that was sold in this country. Base one I think we got was just the GL like this. There was a GLE, which is the luxurious one, the GLT, which was a sporty one, and then the turbo top of the range. Later on, I think in 1991, a bit like the 240, there was an SE model, which was a special edition, which is kind of like a run-out model. By that time, the 940 was already in production, and it was just a really an updated version of one of these. A lot of the parts are exactly the same. Of course, there was the 760 as well, that came out in '82, and both had estate versions, which came out in 1985. 760 had, amongst other options of the engines, these were the exclusive engines to a 760, were the famous PRV V6 engine, which developed initially 156 horsepower, and then later 170 horsepower. I think they badged them originally as a 2.7 litre engine, but then badged them as a 2.8 without any change in capacity, but I could be completely wrong about that, so don't quote me exactly. 760 as well also got a 2.3 turbo engine, similar to the one that I've described already. There are also some diesels, but as you know, if you've been watching this channel for any length of time, we don't talk about those. I just like the effortless nature of this car. The engine's quite torquey, it's very comfortable, the ride is extremely good, you don't feel anything. The main concern obviously is this body lean, but you know, it could be worse. Again, like when I drove the 240, I just feel very much that if somebody was choosing a family car in the 1980s, as my parents were doing, and you needed all the space, or if you were just someone who travelled a lot for business and didn't necessarily need the biggest boot in the world, but just wanted this comfort and had a family to carry around in it, then this would do you very, very well. This comes from a time when Volvo was independent of any other foreign companies, and they just pretty much did what they wanted to do, a bit like Saab, I suppose. It's very easy actually to get used to this car. The steering's very light at parking speeds. 240s without power steering are very heavy. 700, 200 series with the power steering, it's easy. Visibility is extremely good. You can even see where the boot of the car is quite easily. I mean, I could get used to this really. I know that the walk around I did with this car back in March, which was just a quick thing, and you know, the car wasn't as together as it is now. There's still some stuff to do, but there's a few things, but I really like it. Same way probably my parents did with our 240. I don't know whether the 240 or 740 is my favourite. The design of this has always reminded me of an American car rather than the European one, and it was very much designed to take on the American market. Right, I think we will turn around and then we'll go back to the filming location to make some conclusions about this lovely 740. Well, I've just finished the drive of the 740 and it is brilliant. There's no other way to describe it. It's a fantastic car. It's really not designed for, you know, nippy handling or anything like that. It's just designed to cover ground very comfortably and very safely, and also with a fair bit of character. The noise of the viscous fan reminds me of my childhood, and is one of the endearing things about Volvo 740s and 240s with the red block engine. It just really makes you think you've got much more power under the bonnet than you have, but it's very smooth and just sort of reassuring. It just feels like you know, you're going to get to where you want to go, which is really what a Volvo's all about, I should think. Certainly one of this era. Anyway, I do hope you enjoyed this episode of No Budget Reviews. Please don't forget to subscribe to the channel if you haven't already done so, to like this video, and to leave a comment below. There would have been a card towards the beginning of this video which allows you to see my email address if you happen to want to submit a car to feature on the channel, particularly for No Budget Reviews. A lot of the cars I do feature do come from viewer suggestions, which is brilliant. Thanks once again to Mr Richardson from Furious Driving for letting me drive this amazing car, and hopefully, you know, we will get to Santa Pod at some stage, but at the moment, who knows. So yes, if you haven't already subscribed, please do so if you'd like to. I've got Facebook, facebook.com/Lloyd Vehicle Consulting, and also Instagram, instagram.com/Lloyd_vehicle_consulting. Thank you.